After Toby Keith's passing, his family expected memories and keepsakes. But when they opened his garage, they stumbled upon something no one ever imagined. Way behind the everyday tools and oil-stained floor was a discovery that left everyone stunned. And it wasn't what fans thought they knew about him. What was Toby keeping secret all along? Let's find out. Toby Keith's passing on February 5, 2024, marked heartbreaking day for the world of country music. At just 62 years old, he left behind not only a legendary career, but also an irreplaceable presence in the hearts of his family, fans, and fellow musicians. The setting was deeply personal as he passed away peacefully at home, surrounded by his loving family after a long and courageous year. Battle with stomach cancer, his strength in the face of illness had been widely admired, as he never shied away from being honest about his health struggles, while continuing to inspire through his music and public appearances. The battle was not an easy one. Diagnosed in the fall of 2021, Toby Keith endured rounds of chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation treatment. Despite the grueling fight, he maintained a strong spirit, often sharing updates with his fans to assure them that he was still standing tall. He even returned to the stage in 2023 for select performances, proving his resilience and passion for performing. Those who knew him closely often described his determination as unmatched, a reflection of the grit that had carried him from a small-town Oklahoma boy to a household name in American music. Toby Keith was a 5-time Academy of Country Music Entertainer of the Year, a recipient of the Merle Haggard Spirit Award, and an inductee into the prestigious Patriotism. The vehicles inside were more than machines, they were symbols of the life Toby Keith had lived and the values he held dear. From vintage American muscle cars to custom-built motorcycles, each piece in his collection told a story. Some were gifts from fellow artists, others were finds he had tracked down himself, restored with painstaking detail. Among them was a 1969 Ford Mustang, a car he often mentioned as one of his favorites, the Harley-Davidson that had accompanied him on long, soul-searching rides through the Oklahoma countryside. But beyond the chrome and engines, there was something else in that garage, something even closer to his heart. Tucked away in a corner was a workshop filled with handwritten lyrics, half-finished songs, personal journals, and memorabilia that had never been shared with the public. These were the raw pieces of a man whose music had always come from a deeply personal place. There were childhood photos, letters from fans, thank-you notes he had never thrown away, and even sketches of song ideas he had hoped to finish one day. His family, upon discovering these treasures, realized they had stumbled not just into a garage, but into a time capsule of Toby's soul. It was there that the private man revealed himself more fully than he ever had on stage. It painted a portrait of someone who, despite fame, had stayed grounded, deeply sentimental, fiercely loyal, and always creating. Even in his final days, though the world knew Toby Keith as a powerhouse of country music, a patriot, and a performer who never backed down, what he left behind quietly in that garage told another story. One of love for his family, his fans, his country, and his craft, all. A legacy not only of hits and honors, but of heart, learning the value of sweat, discipline, and persistence. These early experiences shaped his worldview and instilled in him a toughness that would later fuel both his music and his rise through a difficult industry. He wasn't handed success, built it, song by song, gig by gig, on stages in smoky bars and roadside venues long before the stadiums came calling. Music had always been a part of Toby's life. Inspired by the country legends his family listened to, he picked up a guitar and started writing songs that reflected his life, his beliefs, and the world he saw around him. By the time he released his debut single, Should Have Been a Cowboy, in 1993, he had already spent years honing his craft. That song would go on to become the most played country song of the 1990s, launching a career that would span over 3 decades. But success didn't change. Toby Keith had only gave him a bigger platform to be unapologetically himself. He wrote songs that spoke to working-class pride, patriotism, heartache, and humor. He was bold, sometimes controversial, and always authentic. Whether it was the defiant tone of courtesy of the red, white, and blue, or the laid-back charm of, "I love this bar," Toby sang with a voice that resonated with millions. Offstage, he remained grounded in the values that shaped him. He married his high school sweetheart, Trisha Lucas, in 1984. And together they raised a close-knit family that remained his foundation through all the highs and lows. He supported military veterans, launched his own record label when the industry didn't believe in him, built businesses that gave back to his community. Even as illness shadowed his final years, Toby's spirit never dimmed, continued to write, perform, and connect with fans using every ounce of strength to stay true to the life he had built. And when he passed, it wasn't just a musical legend. The world lost it was a man who had lived fully, fiercely, and with purpose. His garage, filled with cars that captured eras and emotions, was more than a collection, it was a monument to the journey. Each vehicle a chapter, each memory preserved in metal and chrome. And now, as the garage doors close and the music fades, what remains is a legacy of authenticity, resilience, and a life lived with horsepower in the heart. Letter, folded neatly and placed inside an old cigar box, worn soft at the edges from time. The handwriting was unmistakably Toby's, bold, slanted, and deeply familiar to his wife and children. The letter wasn't addressed to anyone in particular, yet it felt meant for all of them. As they opened it, silence filled the space. It began simply, reflecting the way he spoke, not grand, but real. In it, Toby wrote about life, about the road he'd traveled, the mistakes he'd made, the gratitude he carried for the people who had walked beside him. He talked about his father, the oil fields, the nights chasing music with nothing but a guitar and a hope. He spoke of the fans who had lifted him higher than he ever dreamed, the family that had kept him grounded when the world started to spin too fast. There were moments of humor, stories of tour bus mishaps, bar fights turned friendships, and songs that almost never got recorded. But there were also confessions, regrets for time lost, for moments missed, and an apology for every night he'd been away instead of home for dinner or school play. He thanked Trisha for her loyalty and her laughter, for being the one constant in a life full of motion. He told his children to live boldly, to love without fear, and to never let success matter more than truth. And at the end, scrawled in pen that had faded slightly with time, were the words that stayed with them long after they folded the letter. Back. If you're reading this, then I guess I finally had to go. But don't cry for me too long, I've lived my dream. Keep driving, keep singing. If you ever miss me, just turn up the radio. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a reminder to live, to love, and to carry on. Just like the engines he loved, Toby Keith had left something behind that still ran strong. A legacy built not only in music and machines, but in memories, and in the hearts of those who knew him best. And so, in that garage, under the soft flicker of lights and the gentle hum of silence, his family didn't just find a letter, they found a final verse in the song of his life, one that, like his music, would echo long after the last note faded. Soul unguarded, vulnerable, and achingly human. There was no spotlight here, no audience applause, just the quiet honesty of a man trying to say what mattered most before time ran out. The letter's rough edges and half-formed thoughts made it all the more real. A reflection of someone who had lived fully, but still longed for more time with those he loved. In one paragraph, his handwriting trembled, as if written during a particularly difficult day. He thanked Trisha not just for her loyalty, but for her strength, for being the one who kept the house warm, the kids grounded, and the pieces of his life in place when he couldn't. He admitted he didn't always have the words then, but he hoped they would find them now, through the ink he left behind. To his children, he wrote not about success, but about staying true to themselves. He told them that fame is fleeting, but character remains. He reminded them to take care of each other, to keep laughing, to carry his stories forward. Not the legend, but the lessons. He wanted them to know that even when he was gone, he was proud of who they were becoming, and trusted they'd build lives rooted in love, not legacy. Though the letter trailed off mid-sentence, its meaning was complete. It wasn't about how it ended, but what it revealed. Toby Keith, the chart-topping, stadium-filling country star, was also a man who felt deeply, reflected often, and who, in his final days, turned inward to say the words that had gone unsaid. For too long, for Tricia and the kids, that letter became more than paper and ink. It became a part of him they never knew they needed. A message from the other side of the stage lights. A final embrace wrapped in memory, oil-smudged edges, and the scent of old leather and motor oil. And as they folded it back into the cigar box and placed it among the cars, it no longer felt like a garage at all. It felt like a sacred space, home for not just horsepower and chrome, but for the heart of a man who had always carried his family with him, quietly, deeply, and forever. Never be another like you. His words captured what many were feeling, not just the loss of a musical icon, but the absence of someone who had been a rock in their lives, quietly offering strength, support, and authenticity in an industry often clouded by ego. Other artists echoed the sentiment. Reba McEntire shared how Toby had once offered kind words during one of her own personal lows, describing him as a real one, no filter, no facade, just heart. Jason Aldean, who had once opened for Toby early in his career, credited him with teaching younger artists how to take control of their careers, calling him the blueprint for doing it your way and making no apologies for it. Across genres and generations, the respect for Toby Keith ran deep, not just for the music, but for the man who refused to be anything but himself. Tributes poured in from fans across the world. Candlelight vigils formed in front of concert venues. Car shows played his songs through open windows, and military families sent messages thanking him for his unwavering support over the years. His songs, once summer anthems, barroom staples, and patriotic rally cries, now carried new meaning. Echoing with nostalgia and reverence, in the weeks following his passing, his music surged once more on charts and playlists, not out of trend, but out of tribute. People were reconnecting with what Toby had always offered, truth and song. Whether it was a party anthem, a ballad, or a deeply patriotic verse, he had always written with clarity and conviction. That authenticity, paired with vulnerability, had become re-rand. It was part of why his loss hit so hard. But perhaps the most powerful part of Toby Keith's story was that he didn't just build a career, he built a legacy of love, grit, and integrity. His garage held memories, his will secured futures. His songs told stories. And his final unfinished letter gave his family the one thing money could never buy: his heart. Unguarded and enduring, as the spotlight fades and the headlines shift, one thing remains certain. Toby Keith was never just a man of music. He was a man of meaning. And though he's gone, his voice, gravelly, honest, and unforgettable, still plays on, not only through speakers, but in the lives of those he touched. Never be another like you. His words captured what many were feeling, not just the loss of a musical icon, but the absence of someone who had been a rock in their lives, quietly offering strength, support, and authenticity in an industry often clouded by ego. Other artists echoed the sentiment. Reba McEntire shared how Toby had once offered kind words during one of her own personal lows, describing him as a real one, no filter, no facade, just heart. Jason Aldean, who had once opened for Toby early in his career, credited him with teaching younger artists how to take control of their careers, calling him the blueprint for doing it your way and making no apologies for it. Across genres and generations, the respect for Toby Keith ran deep, not just for the music, but for the man who refused to be anything but himself. Tributes poured in from fans across the world. Candlelight vigils formed in front of concert venues. Car shows played his songs through open windows, and military families sent messages thanking him for his unwavering support over the years. His songs, once summer anthems, barroom staples, and patriotic rally cries, now carried new meaning. Echoing with nostalgia and reverence, in the weeks following his passing, his music surged once more on charts and playlists, not out of trend, but out of tribute. People were reconnecting with what Toby had always offered, truth and song. Whether it was a party anthem, a ballad, or a deeply patriotic verse, he had always written with clarity and conviction. That authenticity, paired with vulnerability, had become rare, and it was part of why his loss hit so hard. But perhaps the most powerful part of Toby Keith's story was that he didn't just build a career, he built a legacy of love, grit, and integrity. His garage held memories, his will secured futures, his songs told stories, and his final unfinished letter gave his family the one thing money could never buy: his heart. It's unguarded and enduring. As the spotlight fades and the headlines shift, one thing remains certain. Keith was never just a man of music. He was a man of meaning. And though he's gone, his voice, gravelly, honest and unforgettable, still plays on, not only through speakers, but in the lives of those he touched.